And go.
Hello, everyone. Researchers are running studies that can help you sell your products better, but you don't have the time to read hundreds of peer-reviewed studies, papers. That's why we created Selling with Science, to the weekly 20-minute science top-off that will put you ahead. I am Nikki Elbaz.
Hey, I'm Sophia Dagnan, and this week we're talking about customer gifts and whether you should use them or not use them.
I think you should because I like gifts.
Okay, so why do you think we should use them, and what's the best gift you've ever gotten? And third question, how do they make you feel about the brand?
Oh, I can't think of anything offhand right now except Sephora, but we talked about Sephora last week. So do you have a best gift?
Actually, no. No, I do not. I don't think I've gotten a lot of free gifts. That makes me sad, maybe? I don't know.
You know what this is making me think of? This is making me think of my childhood, when my father is an anesthesiologist, and he would get gifts from the drug reps all the time. So like my childhood was peppered with like, all sorts of fun drugs, with like clipboards and pens and squishy turtles and like really fun stuff. And it's funny. I'm wondering if now when I see those medical companies that were like on this pen that I was like staring at while I took my like midterms, um, if I feel more attracted to those brands. It's kind of an interesting thought.
That is interesting. I mean, because the reason why companies deploy these tactics in the first place is like with the hope to sway the rep. But I wonder what gifts really have an impact and whether it varies from rep to rep and from company to company. Because I mean, like some people take them out to like fancy dinners, some people give them pens. Personally, I love pens.
They were always taking my dad on like fishing trips. By the way, they've changed dramatically. Like they just started dropping the fishing trips, like that became illegal. And then now even like pens, I think, are illegal. So it was way better to be a doctor like 10 years ago.
You can be bribed like properly.
Yes, exactly. And like these are drugs that people are putting in other people's bodies. So I could see why they regulate the industry. But yeah, bribery is a real thing. Like it's real. So
So is free gifts bribery, and can bribery be used for good? So to sway opinions positively versus like, hey, here have this awesome trip and like sell our stuff now.
why would you think it's not bribery?
Well, I think I suppose, bribery to me has a negative connotation. It implies
Mhm.
that you're doing something that's kind of like a little on the illicit side. But I think because human relationships are basically like so much of what you do can be one of several things, and it just completely depends on how the person on the other side feels about what you're doing as to whether it's like bribery or not. Because I think a gift could be a really thoughtful gesture that shows your appreciation, or it could be a bribe, and it's just literally the feelings of the two parties that determines what that is. So as companies, how can you make people feel that it's appreciation and like they don't owe you a bunch of stuff back versus a bribe? And actually, is it bad for it to be a bribe?
This is making me think of the example in Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. So one of the examples he gives for reciprocity, which, by the way, I'm thinking of bribery as reciprocity. Like in my head, bribery doesn't have as negative connotations. Of
Ah,
course, it does still. It does, obviously. But I guess because reciprocity to me feels like such a burden that it kind of feels like bribery. So maybe they're
that's
both negative
interesting.
in my head. um, so he gives an example of the Hare Krishnas giving flowers in airports, and how people would they would give a flower, and then the like the participants who were walking, not the participants, the innocent bystanders who were walking by and getting these like flowers thrust upon them, would give a donation. But meanwhile, they were like throwing out the flowers. They were rushing to their flights. They didn't want these flowers, and but they would still get so many donations. So that was really interesting to me when I was reading it, because it was kind of like, yeah, like you're making the people hate you even though you're getting money from them. But on the other hand, it was effective. But I guess they're not customers. They're just one-off donations. Like they're not trying to nurture a long-term relationship with them. They're just trying to get a few bucks out of their pockets.
I think that brings a really good point, because that is the way we kind of used to do marketing. Because customer acquisition, almost at the beginning of the digital age, was cheaper, especially like with the way you could spam people with like Facebook ads, and how cheap Google ads were, and how, do you remember like the early days of SEO and content marketing, when it was literally just like keywords stuffed together that no human could read? I think that's almost like the digital equivalent of that, when the relationship didn't really matter. But I think as we're getting a more sophisticated market, and especially if you're actually interested in building a business that people do want to come back to, which you hopefully are, then I think it's that other side, that relationship, that becomes vital if you want to survive, because customer acquisition is going up. It's more expensive to run ads. It's more expensive to do all those things. So then retention really becomes, I think, very, very important.
And I think that actually makes a lot of sense, because going back to that example, he was talking about how the Hare Krishnas did not have a good, positive, like people thought of them as annoying and weird, and like they didn't have, I'm forgetting the term right now, but the perception, but there's like a more scientific term. They had a really bad perception, but for some reason they were getting donations anyway. So I think that reciprocity, that like bribery, was the only way they could get around it, because people hated them anyway. So, but when you're trying to create a relationship, you have to do it a little more subtly. Like don't just throw flowers at people. Although I'll take flowers thrown at me. You could throw flowers at me.
Flowers are cool. But yeah, like I think if I imagine myself in that situation, like I would probably donate. Just because you do feel that
Guilt.
Yeah,
Guilt.
just like even if you take like the shortest of Uber rides, you still feel like the guilt to tip driver. It's like, I went 5 meters, but like I still feel that need to give you money.
But I wonder what that guilt does to brand loyalty. Like that whole experience of walking into a store, and that commission salesperson coming up to you and saying, "Hey, how can I help you?" And you're like, "Go away, I just want to look." I wonder if that kills it. Like it would be cool to see if that helps or hurts.
I think it would depend on the type of product and the market and the relationship, because I think sometimes these tactics, I mean, the reason why we use them is because they can be very effective in certain situations. And I think it does really come down to what kind of business you want to build. Like, do you want to use those more mercenary tactics and make money quickly, which you can? Or do you want to kind of take the more painful road and figure out almost the complexities of human relationships and how to navigate that and how to build a business that lasts? But then the other kind of business can last too. So it's like a human condition question, I think.
But I still think gifts can be done well in a way that does not trigger guilt or any of these kinds of bribery type feelings, and actually increase appreciation, where, yeah, you feel like you're actually getting, because I think it's always when it's tied to an ask, like when it's directly tied to an ask, probably is the differentiator of feeling that guilt, and that it's like a bribe versus, hey, you're a cool brand, I like you because you just gave me something free.
Okay, so I have an interesting thing here. Do you also think it's the way you already feel about the brand? Because, like, I mean, like, do you remember going to birthday parties when you were a kid? And there were certain birthday parties you had to attend and you had to bring a gift, even though you weren't really friends with the kid. So that always felt really like, here's your present and here's your card, because my parents made me. But then when you were friends with that person, you already had warm feelings towards them, and you kind of felt that they had warm feelings towards you. That gift had a totally different meaning. And it's because of kind of basically what was in your head and in their head.
Interesting.
Even if it was like the same box of chocolates or book or like whatever toy that you gave.
Oh no. Oh, it was horrible. Yeah, I'm still thinking about those Lisa Frank stickers that my mom gave my friend and not me. That's interesting. Your perception of the brand before. So you're talking gifts after you're already a customer, or just when you already know about the brand, but you're getting something free anyway?
I suppose both, because I think gifts while you're a customer can be a good retention strategy as long as they're genuine. But then, like, how do you do that effectively, consistently, when whether it's genuine or not just depends on how the person on the other side feels about you, which you can't predict because sadly, like, you're not God or Zeus or whatever.
Sadly, I would love that burden of responsibility.
Right? Omnipotence, look after everyone. No, thank you.
This is bringing something interesting to mind. I've been noticing a lot of the SaaS companies that I use have been like putting little pop-up notifications in my dashboard saying, hey, if you refer 10 friends, we'll send you a t-shirt with my logo on it, with like the company logo on it. And like, I love the company and all. I think they're really cool, but to bother 10 colleagues to get a t-shirt that says their name on it, I don't know. Like, if you send that to me, yeah, I'm going to say that sweatshirt, that t-shirt is really cool. I would totally wear it. But if you're making me do work for it, then suddenly it's not cool anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's the difference between should gifts be just used as an incentive or should they be a pleasant surprise when it comes to giving them a building loyalty. And I, at the moment, tend to fall on the pleasant surprise side because I think using emotion to get that referral and just appealing to like what giving you that referral would mean for that person and how it would help them and kind of going that side, but then sending them something nice when they do it, that makes the gift feel appreciative versus forced because you're forced to go to a person's birthday. Like it creates, I think, the appreciative feeling where you feel valued by the brand versus an exchange.
See, that's really interesting because there was another company that did the same thing and I did it. I was like, that's so awesome. I'm going to send this to all my friends. And the difference is that it wasn't a product, it was a conference. And it was something that I thought my connections would get value from.
Ooh.
So I was totally fine sharing it. And it did feel like a favor because the brand wasn't like, oh, make us more money, refer us more people, and therefore we'll send you a little t-shirt. It was like, hey, spread the word. We're cool. You think we're cool. Like, let more people know how cool we are. And then we'll make you cool and give you a t-shirt. So yeah, it was all about like me tying into the brand, like sharing the brand mission. And then it was like, yeah, a t-shirt ties in really well to that. A t-shirt proves to me that I am like validating this mission as something that I like agree with.
I think this taps into like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And so I'm going to butcher the guy's name, but Sam Gluckensberg, he did this candle experiment, I think back in the 50s. And so the experiment was to see whether offering somebody like a gift, in that case it was money, would help them like perform tasks and do things faster. And so they basically gave people like a box of tacks with tacks in it and a candle. And they're like, look, like stick this candle to the wall. And they found that for the people that they actually offered money to, it took them 3.5 minutes longer to figure out how to solve the problem than for the people that they were just like, look, this is a fun activity. Stick a candle to the wall. Like, how fast can you do it? And I think the same feeling, like the fact that you feel you're being like forced into something by the company, kind of almost like, I suppose they're not demanding, but it feels like somebody's impinging on your freedom to make choices by going, hey, like do this thing for us, and then maybe we'll like give you a t-shirt. Like if you bring value to us. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm stuck on the misbalance of it. Like you're getting something of real value, I'm getting something of questionable value. Which is interesting because the whole intrinsic external motivation thing, you know, they weren't paid very much to stick a candle to the wall. Like they obviously were joining the science experiment because there was a little bit of intrinsic motivation to further science. So It's kind of interesting.
But it's still, at least in the studies I've read, it tends to make you think, it tends to make you think a little more box-like. So you are kind of going forward and you're trying to do specific things. And I'm wondering if with referrals, it does put you in that different mindset. So you're no longer thinking about the value that what you are referring to your friends could bring them, which is how you really get somebody to agree to something. It's by being genuinely enthusiastic and showing them how it helps. Instead, you're thinking about what it brings you. And I think that can make your referrals less effective. Almost, I don't know, like this would be an interesting thing to test. Very, very hard. A bit philosophical now.
Because one day we're opening up our own like science lab.
That'd be cool.
I know, right? Interesting stuff.
Yeah, but how do you make that practical? Because we are here to try to make these things practical, and I get to like thinking up ideas.
I think the number one thing is to first tap into what your customer wants. And I mean, you know what? This is bringing me to the whole content marketing kind of thing and giving out free, like opt-in things, like that trade of your email for whatever information packet. So that is actually something free too. We don't value information enough, but that is something free. And that's huge in digital marketing.
But don't we value it at least in some way if so many people are signing up for that information? And I mean, content marketing is one of the most effective ways of digital marketing that we have at the moment. So doesn't that indicate that there is, like, that the market clearly has put some value on it? I mean, we wouldn't really be here without content marketing.
No, we wouldn't, because this is content marketing, isn't it? I just wonder how much an email address is worth. Not to the company, to the person. Whereas, like, yes, people's inboxes are busy, but Gmail does have that promotions tab where you could just shift it away. I could just hit delete, archive your thing. Like, if you're not compelling me to open your stuff, I can just ignore you. If you give me value, then yes, you have my attention. You got my email address. But if you don't give my value, you essentially didn't get my email address because I won't engage with you. So I'll take value from that one download.
Isn't that similar to a gift though? Because I mean, like, you send somebody a gift, and again, like, you're faced with the same choice. If I like your gift, I'm going to engage with you, and if I don't, I'll gift it to somebody else and not engage with you. Don't do that. But
yeah, good point. Okay, nice parallel. Content marketing, it's like a free gift. So do content marketing. That's takeaway number one.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes, and I actually had a question I want to ask you. Do you think gifts should be a part of the customer experience? Because in our sphere, so in entrepreneurship, actually gifts are a normal thing that as a business owner you would send other business owners or businesses you want to work with. So you almost count as part of the expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Should that be something that companies consider?
I definitely think companies should test it. I think, like, people love gifts, so why wouldn't you want to do something that will make your customer love you? Just at least try it. Absolutely. Agree?
Agree, with a caveat of, like, how do you make that sustainable?
Well, that's where I think it needs to tie into what kind of gift and like targeting who should get the gifts, like almost in a way of like the way onboarding emails trigger, like you need to trigger a certain number of steps to know that the person will now become a customer. So I don't know, certain customers, certain prospects that do certain steps get a gift.
Like the aha gift moment.
Yeah, exactly. Or doing something that's just very affordable, or, you know, there's ways to work around it. And yeah, like any test, like test it in one segment, test it with certain types of gifts, you know. Yeah. Figure out a way to make it sustainable.
Cool. Well, that's us for the day, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
See you
yeah, we
next
will see
week.
you next week with something.
And don't forget to subscribe.